Rupert. So, thanks a lot for your time today. I understand, I got your memo, so I appreciate you providing some of your thoughts. I understand you may have slightly differing views, so what I wanted to do was just speak to you in person, get some of your views and get your feedback, because your opinion is obviously respected within this organisation. So, I wanted to get some of your feedback. I want to give you some of my thoughts on what the strategy should be. Right. And I also want to talk to you what opportunities we have moving forward as well.
All right. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to meet you, and appreciated that you're saying that you respect my feedback and my view on the strategy to go forward. So sure. I appreciate that. So as you mentioned, clearly I think we have very differing views on how to go ahead with the strategy, and I also wanted to understand, so I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but I have been working on the Indonesia market for quite some time now. Sure. And wanted to understand what your take is on the strategy. And I heard that you want to go ahead with an acquisition strategy.
Yep.
And that's not something that that's where I think our views differ. And I wanted to understand why you think that is the way to go ahead. And
sure.
So your rationale behind the whole strategy, so that we can come to mutual decision, and where I think both of us agree on our strategy and how to go forward. So sure. If you can just provide your rationale behind it, and then I can do the same, or if you want me to go ahead, I can do it.
Okay.
Whichever is more comfortable.
No, I'm happy to kind of provide some of my thoughts initially. Okay. So, as you know, you and the former, my predecessor have been in Indonesia for a while.
Right.
And obviously there's a lot of insights that you've raised from there as well, which I'd love to come hear about.
Right.
The CEO, as you know, has appointed me because there's a renewed kind of focus both from the CEO and the organisation to develop a growth strategy and execute on the strategy, which is a bit more aggressive than what we have been in the past. And I know that may have been some of your frustrations as well. So this period now is about outlining what our future growth will be, and it'll be a pivot from what we've done before, not criticizing any of the work that you've done or any of the company has done, but about how do we accelerate that growth. So from my perspective, why I've come up with a view from an acquisition perspective is I also know there's immense challenges in the Indonesian market. So we have been starved of growth, and really that's probably a portion of the lack of investment and focus from our board and our executives, and also just because of the competitive landscape in the Indonesian market. So for me, I feel like we've got a relatively short time frame in the next 3 or 4 years to execute on a significant growth strategy, and to be able to do that and to be able to quickly acquire or quickly attain capabilities and IP and the right people to grow in the market, and also potential conflicts with the government as well to manage that. I feel like an acquisition strategy is the right way to go.
Okay, and are you aware of the challenges that could happen in the growth in the acquisition strategy versus an organic growth one?
Sure, I'd love to hear your opinion.
So why? Why I think very strongly that acquisition might be a very risky move for us is, all right, let me start with organic growth first to begin with. Okay, sure. First of all, I think organic strategy is much cheaper, less riskier. Yes, you're saying that it's relatively slower if you compare it to an acquisition strategy. In acquisition, you could just go and buy a few companies and execute much faster than we would be able to probably in an acquisition in an organic growth one. Yep. But then I think there are a lot of challenges and risks associated with the acquisition growth strategy. I'm not sure if you heard about the example of Compact in Indonesia. Correct me if all right. So Compact is a company which is in a similar industry, and they came in with a very aggressive acquisition strategy. And what happened in the end was that they got involved in a lot of litigations and suits, because of which it was a complete disaster for Compact. They came crashing down, and eventually they had to move out of the market, and then they tried to come in. But then if you don't get it right the very first time, as you said, we're very short on time. So if you don't get it right in the first time, then it's a lot of money and time which is going to go into the execution, and then which is going to go waste. And at the same time, it's going to be very damaging for the company's reputation. And let's just say that it'll be very difficult to come back in again if we don't get it right. Now, issues that I see, as I mentioned, with The acquisition strategy, you yourself said there are a lot of legal challenges. There's very low transparency. There are issues with the government. Now, the problem that I see with acquisition is that if you go ahead with acquiring a company, we're not in a position to acquire the biggest of the names because we don't have that much capital, right? That's my understanding. Please correct me if you think that I'm going wrong anywhere. If you think that I don't have enough information, I would love to have your feedback. But as far as my understanding is concerned, we're not in a position to go ahead and acquire the bigger players. So if you go ahead with the smaller players, some of the risks are you will only get to know about the undisclosed liabilities or the contingencies of acquiring those companies. What is the problem with them once you've already done it, which is by that time too late to actually move out of it. Secondly, we risk having a lot of lawsuits from these companies or from other players in terms of the acquisition strategy that we go ahead with, which I think, as you mentioned, is going to create a lot of problems for us. So if you do go ahead with acquiring a bigger company, in that case you will have to partner with someone else, in which case we stand losing majority control of the companies, which again I don't think is something that we should be doing, but would love to hear your feedback on that.
Sure. Can I just ask a couple of questions? So,
Sure.
so you mentioned obviously we would need to get it right the first time because, like Compact, there were execution issues, and I completely agree. I feel that whatever investments we make, whether it be organic or inorganic, we need strong leadership within Indonesia as well, and we need people who know the market and know the customers. So that's something I totally agree with you, and I feel is a huge risk whether it's organic or inorganic. The execution on making a large investment is going to come with a lot of execution risk. So noted, and I totally agree with that. And Compact is a good one to get across. In terms of your point around the liabilities and the lawsuits, yes, I agree with that, but to what extent? I feel that if we have an M&A strategy, it's not going to be acquiring any businesses, and I think you talked about capital, and I'll talk about that in a second. But in terms of the rigor that we would apply in selecting the companies and in choosing and doing our due diligence on these companies would be extremely rigorous. From my perspective, there's going to be risks whether we go organic or inorganic as well, and there's definitely going to be companies that have a lot of issues, whether it be legal issues or lawsuits that they have, whether it be accounting policies. But that is going to be our responsibility, and the strong leadership that we put in place in Indonesia's responsibility to check that we do our due diligence and we're confident in specific businesses. So I agree with all those points that you've made, and I think that they're going to be challenges whether they're organic or inorganic. And I feel like from an inorganic perspective, yes, we'll take that risk, and we have to do our due diligence so we're comfortable and we minimize that risk. But that's something that is going to be kind of a huge responsibility that both I and whoever's kind of leading the operations from an Indonesian perspective will need to make. So I kind of agree with that, with some of your observations and the risks and the challenges with doing M&A. I feel I'd kind of like to ask, from your experience working in Indonesia though, that don't we face similar challenges from an organic perspective as well? One, in terms of building, the cost and the time it takes to build capabilities and to hire people and to get the right IP and human capital, and don't we also face similar risks in terms of there still is corruption, high levels of corruption in the government, and we don't have a lot of the times we don't have the control or the relationships to be able to manage that and minimize the risks associated with that.
Okay, so a couple of things that you mentioned, and I'm going to take them one by one. The first one that you said, you understand that there are risks, as you said, with the acquisition strategy, and you said that we're going to do our due diligence, and you or whoever's in charge of the Indonesia operations, you're going to make sure that there's a lot of due diligence, and there's no issue as such. Before you go ahead and you spend time and whatever. But then that's where I'm saying is the problem. I'm not saying that we will not be doing the due diligence, but the problem comes in doing the execution of due diligence. Yes, one is that we want to go ahead and do due diligence, and we're trying to make sure that we do it. But then, having worked in Indonesia for so long, having understood the industry, having understood the way companies work and people think, the risk that I see in go ahead with acquisition, as I said, in doing the due diligence by itself, the system is so opaque that you will not be able to find out problems even before before you actually go ahead and acquire the company. And once you've started working with the company, whichever company you go ahead and acquire in Indonesia, till that time you will not even be able to figure out what the issues are, which is exactly what happened in Compact's case.
Sorry, can I stop you there for a second?
Sure.
Apart from Compact, do you have other examples of where that have been an issue? So I know that there's been some successful M&A transactions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Have you conducted due diligence where you haven't been able to get the information, or have you seen a lot of other examples where this kind of issue that Compact faced was an endemic issue across the industry in Indonesia?
I don't have any examples by name, but then I know for a fact that this is an industry which lacks a lot of transparency. Indonesia is a market which is known to have very low transparency, which is known to have a lot of legal issues, which is known to have a lot of problems when it comes to the authorities from getting approvals from the government. So you said that, we don't have, so when you were comparing it to the organic, you said that, you'll face the same challenges in the organic growth strategy, but then you said that we don't have enough expertise in going ahead with an organic one. But I, on the contrary, feel that we have enough expertise. I myself feel that because I've been working in the region for a very long time, and I have a lot of colleagues in our company who are willing to move back to relocate to Indonesia in order to make sure that the execution of whichever strategy we go ahead with works out in the best interest of the company. So that's one place where I do not agree, where I would like to disagree with you in saying that we don't have enough manpower or capacity or resources to go ahead with an acquisition strategy, because we have enough people to go ahead who are experienced and who are more than happy to relocate to Indonesia in order to ensure on-ground execution.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the other part is concerned, where you asked for examples for Compact, no, I really don't have any specific examples for you.
Sure.
But I can talk from experience that yes, that is an industry-wide problem, because that's how generally the industry is. But if you're saying that there have been many successful M&A transactions,
yeah.
I would love to hear your a little bit more detail of that if you can provide some.
So I think what I was trying to say was, yes, there are issues with specific deals, and Compact's one example, but also because of these challenges, if we can identify standout companies, because you're not saying that, yes, there's issues across the industry, but it's not saying that 100% of companies are fraudulent or 100% are unsuccessful or not transparent. So if we can tap in and tap into a specific company that is a standout or is a market leader in different ways, I think that may be a way. So I appreciate your views, and I think basically the core item around whether we go inorganic or organic, that is obviously something that the organization will need to make in terms of a decision. I'm keen to understand, okay, so the reason why we're trying to look at this pivot is because we haven't been able to achieve growth. So I do appreciate that you have market knowledge, but have we been successful as an organization in building our organization and growing in Indonesia recently? I don't feel, and the company doesn't feel at this stage that we have been able to kind of accelerate that. So as I said, it's half because of the execution and half because we need to do something differently and invest even more. So how do you feel about that?
So what input are you expecting from my side in deciding the strategy? If you're saying that you've already decided that acquisition is the way to go, then what exactly is it that you're expecting from me?
So it hasn't been decided that it's going to be an M&A strategy,
okay.
But I'm trying to understand your views on the challenges with this as well, because I think they're valid points and we would need to mitigate that. I would also want your views on if we were to go with an inorganic strategy, and I understand you have concerns about it, and so do I. I feel like whichever path we take, I've got concerns about it, and there's risks that we need to manage. If we were to go with an inorganic strategy, which I'm more inclined to do at the moment, I want your understanding of, given the risks and given the measures that we would put in place to manage those risks, whether you would be kind of committed to be able to work with that approach, because I feel like given especially your understanding of the issues, then you would be a good person to also lead some of these large-scale projects, large-scale kind of businesses as well in Indonesia, to understand, okay, well, how do we navigate through this kind of complex environment?
Okay, so
but saying that, that is kind of the path that I'd love to take, and I'd love to kind of get your views on. The key thing is whether you would actually believe in this and you could get yourself to say, okay, well, if this is a path that the company takes, I can work with it and I can kind of take on responsibility and I can kind of own it as well. So I need to kind of understand that.
All right. So before we go ahead on that, we need to establish one thing. So when you go ahead, when you will be going ahead and presenting whatever strategy we
Sure.
decide to come up with to the CEO,
Sure.
I need to make sure that I'm present
Sure.
and the CEO knows that we're on the same ground in that particular. If I do go ahead with execution, I want it to be that he's aware that we're on the same page in that. That's one thing that's one basic ground rule that I want to establish.
Mhm.
That it should not be behind my back. That anything that happens should not happen behind my back.
Sure.
And if we go ahead with the acquisition strategy, then I have a few concerns and demands. I mean, that's just a very basic thing that just so that he's also aware that both of us are on the same page. But besides that, I have a few things that I would need, a few requirements that I would want to be met from your side, since you're clearly the head of the department, and I would love for you to agree on a few things if we do go ahead with the acquisition, because I strongly believe that whichever strategy we take, I strongly believe that I will be, because I have experience of the region, I will be able to execute it, whichever strategy we do decide on going ahead with. I think I'm in a very good position to go ahead with the acquisition, having known the area and how to navigate through it. So for those things, the requirement that I'm saying, one, something that I've been looking forward to, had been looking forward to for a very long time, was to relocate back to Jakarta to be with my family. That's one thing that I would want to ensure that happens. Secondly, I'm looking at a 20% raise in salary for this new position in Jakarta. And thirdly, I want to lead the efforts on ground in Indonesia and have full discretion on whichever strategy that we go ahead, like full discretion on the decisions that we make.
Okay, so thanks for sharing some of your views. I want to correct you on one thing. So you said you want to be aware and you want to be in the discussion with the CEO so that I'm not going behind your back. So firstly, that is not something that I will kind of accept as a comment, because I'm not going behind your back. And from my perspective, there's you and there's 4 or 5 different team members as well.
Mhm.
And I'm collectively trying to get the views of the team collectively and would represent that to the CEO. So
sorry
I'm not
to stop you there. I'm sorry for using that language. What I say behind my back, I do not mean that you're trying to. Actually, it might have come across so that I'm trying to say that you will try to backstab me or anything. That's not what I was saying. Maybe I used incorrect language. What I'm trying to say is that I would want to be in the picture, and I would want to make sure that we're on the same page in front of the senior management. So I would want to be in the loop, is I should have put it. So I apologize for putting it across like that. So
Sure.
That's not what I was
Sure,
trying
no
to say.
problem.
Yeah.
No problem. So thanks for kind of establishing that, and I'm glad we're kind of on the same page. In this meeting specifically, I can talk to the CEO about that. In terms of the key thing for me is really that, one, that you understand that there will be a view, and obviously I will be kind of a strong proponent of influencing that view, but I'm trying to shape that from the opinions of both you and the other team members as well. And I know we may have differing views, and that's a good thing, because we're going to be able to bounce ideas off each other and so on.
Right.
In terms of your some of your demands or some of your requirements of what we do moving forward. So for me, I understand this, and I think I can work with you on this. For me, before we talk about like the specific options that we have on the table and about your contract and so on, I'm flexible. For me, what I really want to achieve is I want you and I to be on the same page. I want us to be talking like we are one team and be executing on a strategy that we agree. And I've been outlining to the CEO. I've got a preliminary, and I would like to outline to the CEO that basically we have to be on the same page. We have to be one team, and whatever you're executing in Indonesia needs to be. So if you are leading certain aspects of the acquisitions or certain aspects of the strategy, it needs to be exactly in line with what our discussions are and what we agree. That's my key principle in terms of what you're doing has to be in line with not what I tell you to do, but what we agree, and what we agree is the right approach.
I completely understand that, and that would be in the best interest of the company.
Mhm.
So when I say that I want full authority and autonomy and discretion on whatever I do on the on-ground execution,
Sure.
of course, the broad strategy that we decide, all the strategic decisions that we go ahead with,
Yep.
will be in line with whatever you and I or the team discusses within ourselves.
Mhm.
But then when I say that I want discretion on full on-ground execution, I'm talking about the non-strategic decisions as such. So the broad strategy will be in line with whatever the team decides, you and I decide, or whoever's the other person in the team. But when I say discretion, I want discretion on the on-ground activities, because I don't want to be, I shouldn't put it this way, but then basically I think it will be much faster if we go ahead with, if I'm based out of Jakarta and if I'm doing some of the execution of the strategies that we decide, then I think it will be much faster if I don't have to keep on running off to you and wasting your time and asking for small approvals.
Mm-hmm.
So the broad strategy will be in agreement between the two of us.
Sure.
But then the non-strategic decisions, I want authority and autonomy on that. I think I'm not being very unfair in saying that, because I think that's in the best interest of the company. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm not really getting anything out of it personally, but you have to understand that I think that would be a right way to go forward, so that we don't waste too much of our time taking approvals or doing anything in that.
Sure.
So I think if we can agree on that, it'll be great.
Okay. So I am in line with some of your thinking as well, and we can talk about that very shortly in terms of that. Again, it's really about us being one team.
Absolutely.
And for me, also from that is, so my expectations is that we're going to have, and you will have the right, and I obviously want to give you discretion to kind of execute and so on. For me, it's really important that I can trust you with the decisions that you're making, and I can trust that you're doing everything in the interest of the company, which I'm sure you have been doing thus far, and that's why you've been successful thus far. The key thing is that we are both open to each other about the issues that we're facing, both internally as an organization and also externally with the companies that we're dealing with the governments that we're dealing with. So for me, for us communicating and operating efficiently, where we are keeping each other in the loop of what's happening, and I will obviously be likely in Singapore for at least half of the time, and whatever strategic decisions we're making, I will make based on the input of not just you, but the whole team as well. And it's not my decision either, it's our collective decision with the input. And I will be communicating as much of that as I can. There'll be open feedback. I'll be telling you when there are certain things that I think we can improve, and I would expect the same thing from you as well.
Which is what I'm saying. So absolutely, as far as the strategic decisions are concerned, I think the team has to be in agreement before executing a broad strategy. But then what I'm looking for in terms of autonomy is not having to come to you for any small non-strategic decisions. So the execution of non-strategic decisions, I would appreciate full authority over that, so that I don't have to take anyone's approval. But the broad strategies of how to go ahead with will be in line with whatever is decided between in the head office and between us and the whole team.
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about some of the things that you've kind of requested. So wanting to relocate and back to Jakarta, and I understand your family's there as well. That's, I would be very much happy to kind of push for that in the organization. For me, one, I believe in balance, and I believe how important being close to the family is and so on. And for me, that's kind of the most important thing. It's all about family and then work as well. So that's something that I totally agree with, and I would have no problem with. I also appreciate that you've led a lot of the efforts in Indonesia, and you have your relationships with the government and customers and so on. So I think it would just make perfect sense for you to be in Jakarta. So that's like not a problem, and we can work with that. I will likely be coming to Indonesia a lot as well. I'm still responsible for the success of the region and our operations there. So I'll be there and in constant communication. So I would have no problem with that. And I think that would benefit both you and myself and also the organization. So that's something that we can work with. 20% raise in salary, that kind of comes as a surprise. That's a bit abrupt to me. Can you explain to me where you get that 20% from, and what some of the drivers are behind that?
The drivers behind that, I mean, when it comes to why 20%, I think if it's more about what I think that I deserve in the company, having given all my life to the company and having put in so much effort. I think that's just a monetary. Uh, how should I put it? That's something that I'm expecting as a reward for my work and experience in the company and whatever inputs I've given. I think that's the kind of appreciation from the company that I'm expecting. So
Okay, so I understand that, and I agree that we should be compensated. And compensation is just one aspect of being appreciated in the company. But yes, you have dedicated your life to the company as well.
Mhm.
But the company has been paying you in that time. It hasn't. It's not.
of course,
free
of
work,
course.
right?
So that's just no.
So I understand that.
Of course, I mean I wouldn't have been working here if the company hadn't been paying me. But that's
Exactly.
yeah.
I think, exploring kind of salary negotiations and so on, I would be kind of happy with that in the normal cycles as well. And for me, I feel that it's really both my pay and your pay and everyone else's pay should really be tied to performance, improving performance as well.
That's of course that's I completely understand that's
At,
there, but
at this stage, um, I'm not. I don't think I would want to entertain something like that, especially so drastically at the moment. I think the most important thing is for us to establish where we're going to be and start moving along with the responsibilities that we have, and we can talk about for both myself and my conversation with the CEO, but your conversation with me around what compensation should be elevated to once we start hitting some of the milestones or getting traction on the strategy. Right now, without even establishing or having agreed on a strategy and without starting execution, I feel this would be a bit premature.
I I would like to disagree on that. I mean, as so when I'm saying that when I'm agreeing to this relocation to Jakarta and when I say that I want to be the head of on ground execution, I think I agree that yes, I've been compensated for in the company for whatever work I've done, but I think this is one uh, thing that I'm expecting in terms of uh, you know I'm sort of looking at a promotion here in terms of
Sure.
being the head of the on-ground execution, and with the promotion, I'm also expecting a raise in the salary. So it just, it's not a number which I'm cooking out of the air and I'm saying that 20% is whatever. I could have said 50, I could have said 60. That's not the point. But this is something that I feel is justified for my elevation and position and the responsibilities that I would be expecting, and I'm willing to give as much as I can. I've always given my best to the company, and I'm willing to go ahead with this particular strategy that you are you're very well aware of that I'm not very comfortable with. But I think being compensated on a monetary level is also something that will really that's something that I'm really looking forward to. And while I agree that it's linked to the the variable benefits and the performance and everything. But yeah, this is something that I'm really looking to at this moment. So
Sure, sure. So, and I think to be clear at the moment, what we're discussing now is your increased responsibilities in Indonesia. It's not a direct promotion right now. So I just want
yes,
to be
yes,
clear with
yes,
that.
yes, yes. I'm not looking.
So,
I'm not
um,
looking at an official, like a designation position. But when I say that I'm going to be leading the efforts on ground, I mean that in practicality, I'm going to be leading the efforts. So it's not like a elevation in position, so to speak, that I'm looking at. The designation is not what I'm talking about. But yes, effectively, I am the head of on-ground operations in Indonesia.
so,
I think that's something
and,
that we've
and can
already established.
and can I? Sorry, and maybe I wasn't that clear with the wording. Can we? I think I want to not be so firm about you being the head of the operations. I think both you and I, as a team, are responsible for the success of
Of course,
Indonesia, and I
which I
want you to
said,
be responsible.
you are the head of the department for
Sure.
sure. But I'm just talking about the on-ground execution.
Sure.
I would let me rephrase it. I would want to lead the on-ground execution efforts with full autonomy on non-strategic decisions. At least I think that's what we had agreed on. So
No. Sorry, I haven't agreed on that. But um, yes, we want you to be responsible and have more responsibilities.
Mhm.
But at the moment, it's still in strategy formation, and it's still in formation of like what we're going to do and how we're going to execute. Remember, if we go with an M&A strategy, we haven't bought anything yet, so
Yeah.
your responsibilities technically haven't expanded that much, and they will gradually. In terms of pay, like I've mentioned before, and I understand your drivers. But to me, I feel like one, we pay competitive and we pay at market from a general perspective, and you've got tenure with our company as well, and you've been remunerated to kind of your performance and what has been your responsibilities to date. With this move, yes, your responsibilities will gradually increase,
Mhm.
and basically with the success of certain deals and with the success of the execution, then your performance will obviously prove and drive increases in salary in the future as well. For me, like I said, right now it doesn't seem that that palatable, especially with you moving to Indonesia as well and market rates being considerably less. We'll be offering the same thing, which allows you to have a much afford more. And I know for you that might be irrelevant, but to us, from a market performance and pay perspective, it does still make sense. And it's not like we're down; we're not doing anything negative or destructive to your package as well.
So, all right. So let's keep the package aside. I would want to come back to the point where I thought we had an agreement on in terms of leading the on-ground efforts.
Sure.
So I thought you and I had agreed on it, but I thought you said that we haven't agreed on it. So just want to clarify that first before we go on to the salary.
I would like you, if you want to, right? So this is nothing set right now, but if you want to be responsible and really own a lot of the day-to-day operations, I want you to take ownership of kind of the execution and really own the execution. But having full autonomy is not terminology that I agree with.
I would, when I say discretionary authority, I'm looking at discretionary authority on the non-strategic decisions. I'm being very clear here that the overall strategy that we decide to go ahead with, the strategic decisions will be based on the team, be based on whatever the team decides. But I'm looking at the local non-strategic decisions, which I want full discretionary authority from you on that. So I'm not talking about that I will not consult you for anything or deciding the strategy for the company. That is going to be decided by the company as a whole. But I'm talking about the on-ground execution where I'm looking at discretionary authority on the local non-strategic decisions. Let me be very clear, at least the non-strategic decisions is where I'm looking at discretionary authority from you. So I don't want to come to you on a daily basis to talk about how to go ahead with the local decision-making process, which will be in line with the strategy that the company decides. Let me be very clear on that. So the strategy, you have you and the team, whoever's part of the team, we have. It'll be a mutual decision based on whatever we decide. But I'm talking about the local non-strategic execution. So those decisions I want full authority on from you.
To me, allocating someone full discretion, whether it be strategic or non-strategic items, doesn't sound that attractive to me. For me, it's about you kind of being responsible and driving really the execution, but for us doing it and being responsible for it as a team, and for us to be in the loop and in collaboration with the decisions that we make. Does that mean I need to sign off on small discretionary decisions? No.
Mm-hmm.
You have the authority to do that, but to say you have full discretionary authority on non-strategic aspects would not make sense, because I feel like it is us as a team that's responsible for the success of the business.
I completely understand where you're coming from and what you're trying to say here, but then that is not something that will really work for me. I mean, it'll be very difficult for me to work on, having no salary increase as well as having not the autonomy and authority from you on these things. So, like, if we can come up with some other option so that both you and I feel comfortable doing something, I think that would really be great, because this will become very difficult for me to actually work on with the strategy.
So let me explain why I'm kind of pushing back on some of these things. I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm trying to establish a relationship where you will be very heavily involved in Indonesia, and I will continue to be involved in Indonesia, and I'm still responsible for it. But basically, I want the working relationship to be based on communication and trust, not on you having certain authority on certain decisions and me having certain authority on certain decisions, like strategic decisions. This needs to be about whatever the strategy is that's agreed with the CEO, that I will be executing it and you will be executing it, and there'll definitely be trust where I can trust you to make operational and daily decisions, but that's not going to be defined by saying you have full authority to do something and you have this responsibility, so here's more pay. That's not a relationship built on trust. So for me, it's one, expanding your responsibilities, and obviously if we continue to succeed, then you're going to continue to get more authorities, and you're going to have to require less involvement from myself, for example, or you're going to have more responsibilities and you're going to have more opportunities to increase your salary and so on, if that's the most important thing. So for me, a lot of these discussions are a bit are quite constraining from specific items, which I don't want to be very firm on right now, because I think we haven't even agreed on with the CEO what that strategy will be and what the progression of that will be. Our responsibilities haven't increased that much right now.
That's fine. Our responsibilities haven't increased. I mean, I don't think that I'm trying to focus more on the responsibilities having increased. I'm trying to look at how to way to go forward and move ahead, such that you are also comfortable and I'm also comfortable with it. And I want you to understand that the things that I've mentioned are really, really important for me in order to be in agreement on this particular strategy. Because let me put it again. I do not feel that acquisition is the way to go forward. And I really think it's going to present a lot of challenges for the company. But if I do go ahead with that thing, then these are some of the most basic requirements that I'm really looking forward to. So, as I mentioned before, I'll repeat myself. If discretionary authority is not something that you're willing to give to me on day-to-day execution, even if I'm in line with the overall strategy that the company decides, then I'm looking to be compensated in some way monetarily.
And I understand your views, and I'm glad we're having this conversation because I think we're providing very clear views on what each other wants. And to me, what you're saying in terms of you either want your organic strategy, and let me know if I'm misinterpreting it. You want the organic strategy, but if you were to go ahead in executing what I have expressed as kind of my preferred strategy in organic case, then if you're going to go ahead and agree with that, then you need some of these items that you outlined to me, whether it be relocation, which we've agreed on, it's not a problem, but there's compensation and there's full authority. If I weren't to give you full authority, then you want to be compensated through a higher salary as well. I think just one thing to be aware of, and from my perspective, it's quite important to understand what each of our drivers are. But those two things are also separate things. So you're trading whether you get full authority or greater pay. I think, in essence, later on, both of those things can be increased. You can have more authority, you can have more salary as well as we succeed and do well in Indonesia. And you can kind of prove yourself, and I can prove myself to the team as well. So I don't want to mix those two, and I'm not going to sit here and trade those things with you because I don't think they're equivalent things to trade.
Absolutely. I'm not looking at a trade-off between, if you give me less authority, then I need more salary. I've already said that salary is something that I really need in order to, I'm at a stage in my family where I'm really looking at a higher compensation. And I think it'll be...
Even in Indonesia.
Sorry?
Even in Indonesia.
Even in Indonesia, yes. So, I'm saying that if you're really constrained on the salary, then I definitely need full authority on the non-strategic decisions. I'm not trying to mix or trying to look at a trade-off between the two things.
Sure.
But yeah, I would really appreciate at least one of these two things.
Sure.
So
I appreciate that. I am going to, and I don't want to drag this conversation on too much longer, but I do want to stay firm and say that um, those kind of things, yes, will form part of the role as we continue to move forward, but they're not things that I'm willing to right now say you're going to get more salary or you're going to get full discretion, because I don't think I'm in a position to be comfortable with that, because I haven't even looked at a company and done due diligence. You haven't done due diligence on a specific company as well.
Mhm.
So there are certain things that we have no control over right now, and we will learn as we go through the local operations as we execute the strategy. So they're not things that I can say to you and I can guarantee to you. So I don't want to falsely promise that to you right now, because I can't. So just be aware of that. For me, with that understanding, I feel that, well, you can decide to be on board with this and really trust that there's going to be this process and work with it. But I also feel that some of your comments have said you may not be comfortable unless you get some of these things as well. Am I hearing you right?
you're absolutely hearing me right. I
Yeah.
mean, in order to be, see, if I'm running the on-ground execution, then I also need to be comfortable with the execution of those strategies.
Sure.
And if I'm agreeing to something in principle of going ahead with a strategy which I do not fully believe in, and yet I'm, of course, it's not like, just because I don't believe in the acquisition strategy, I'm not going to give my best to it, because
Sure.
I've always given my best to the company and I will still work in the interest of the company. I've given my life to it and I really want to, I really like the company and I'd really love to stay in the company and give as much as I can even in future. But in order for me to be comfortable with the execution of whatever strategy we do decide to go ahead with, I'm really looking at, that's the reason where I'm coming from when I say that I want full discretionary authority on the local day-to-day activities. And I'm not saying that I'm going to keep you out of the loop, and I'm not saying that I'm going to go behind your back, or I'm not saying that, I'm not going to consult you on any particular thing. But then you need to understand that when I say I'm looking at day-to-day execution, I'm also looking at, even that is coming from the best interest of the company behind that, because I really don't want to be, I don't want to spend my time and energy on coordinating smallest of the things between Indonesia and Singapore on a daily basis.
Sure.
So if we can agree to say a particular, if say we go ahead and we're saying that, okay, this is the company that we're trying to acquire and this is what we're going to go ahead with, and we've decided on a particular strategy that XYZ is the way how we're going to go about it. And once we have already established the way to go forward, that's where I'm saying that is where I want to come in and say that, okay, now I'm going to, because I'm leading the execution of that particular strategy which has been decided between you and I and the rest of the team. I don't want to on a daily basis come up to you and take your approval on on smallest of the things.
Okay.
And I think I'm not being very unfair in that, because that is also, that I think would be the most efficient way to go forward with.
Okay.
So I think we're not probably able to see eye to eye in terms of, like, maybe I'm not able to explain properly what I mean when I say I want discretionary authority, because I think for you're saying that I will not even consult you on anything, which is not what I'm saying.
Sure.
So I'm trying to be very clear here.
Actually, I think that's a good point. I think for us just saying you're ahead or you've got full discretionary approvals and so on hasn't been as constructive. And what some of the things that you were talking about just then were actually helpful. So from an agreement perspective, I think it would be helpful if we agree that yes, you will have responsibility and increasing responsibility from Indonesia, and yes, you will have discretionary. You will have discretionary budget. You will have staff that report to you in Indonesia, and you will have discretionary authority to kind of run the operations, day-to-day operations. I think we should agree together what the caveats, not caveats, but like what the processes we should put in place to ensure that there is still transparency, is still some sort of governance, not to check in on you, but to ensure that we can highlight any issues should they occur, not with you, but for operations and with the country and so on, and have an escalation process should there be certain things that you need to consider that you would need to bring up to me and bring up to the leadership as well.
See, Jonah, you are the boss at the end of the day, and I am reporting to you. So let's be clear that I'm not trying to bypass you, or I'm not trying to go to the CEO behind your back, or without your consultation. Everything that I do
Sure.
will be in consultation with you and the team. But I'm just talking about the day-to-day activities. If I'm talking to you today and we say that, okay, this is how we should go about it, then I don't want a daily involvement from the head office, because I think that's counterproductive from your end as well as from me. If everything has to come from you and everything has to be rechecked and approved by you, I think that is not a right way to go forward in execution.
Sure.
So when I say that I'm leading the on-ground efforts in Indonesia,
Yep.
you said that yes, I will have discretionary budget, I will have a team on to look after the execution.
Sure.
But yes, it will still be in the overall strategy will be in consultation with you.
Sure.
But the day-to-day small activities, I don't want to. Once we've decided on a strategy and we've said that this is how we should go about a particular process,
Sure.
then I don't want to come to you on a daily basis and get your approval.
I think we're getting closer in
Okay.
terms of our views, and I totally agree. I like the way you phrased it just then. So I just want a few examples of how we'll continue to kind of discuss and so on. Overall, daily we'll be on calls and we'll be on discussions with whatever issues and stuff we're facing, but you don't need to report to me or get my approval for certain things. Some examples of governance would just be a weekly report or a bi-weekly report on due diligences, or a weekly report on certain integrations that we're having, and which highlights some of the highlights and some of the issues and so on. So they would be kind of check-ins in terms of significant projects and strategically important projects that we're doing. There'd be an escalation process for if it's a massive expense or it's kicking off for a certain significant project. That would be something that you would need to escalate both to me, and I would need to escalate to the CEO so that we're aligned with that. You would get kind of day-to-day operational budgetary stuff, which you don't need to kind of console with me, obviously. So I think we're kind of there as long as you'll be responsible for the daily operations, and you will have discretionary authority, obviously, for day-to-day things. But we will have bi-weekly or weekly check-ins for project updates for significant and strategically important projects. We will have some reports. We will have some processing.
Absolutely. So I think again, so because it's an execution heavy process, I would say that weekly or bi-weekly, I think would probably be would take a lot of time from me or the staff, whoever's trying to report to you. But I think I'm definitely comfortable in trying to, once we've decided on a strategy, I think I can definitely report back to you with whatever's happening on the day-to-day activities on a monthly basis. I think if you're all right with that, once every month, basically we'll as far as the whole team meetings are concerned, that will obviously that could happen on a weekly basis, that could happen on bi-weekly. But then when it comes to the on-ground execution work, I think if we can keep the reporting process limited to once a month, I think that's something that I'm comfortable with.
Sorry, so when I say reporting, I think a formal report once a month would be fine, but having a weekly check-in, not a team meeting, but a weekly check-in on highlighting what some of the key milestones are and highlighting what some of the key issues are would be right, whether it be twice a week or once a week. And I don't need a lot of work to do it. I need you to explain some of the issues that you're facing so that we can bounce ideas off each other and also provide some high-level guidance as well. So for me, having a 1 month check-in would not make sense, because that's not transparent. That's not really ongoing collaboration as well. Remember, my kind of key item is that we're very open and we're both on the same page of what's happening. I don't need to approve everything, but I want to know kind of what's going on in general. So.
All right. So as far as you want to be aware of what's happening,
sure.
I think we can definitely agree to a bi-weekly.
Sure. Once
in 2 weeks, we can give you once every 2 weeks, or actually even once every week. I think we can fix up a particular, like I can drop you an email or like a detailed memo of whatever's happened in the past week, and if I'm feeling like if there are anything that I want to bounce off you, or if I feel that there's something that I would need your guidance on, that's something that we can do. But as far as I would appreciate if you don't call it as a weekly check-in on me, because I think I feel that if you call it a check on me, I think that's kind of like questioning my experience and expertise. But then if it's for you, if it's more about the process being transparent and you want to be up to date of whatever's been happening, then yes, I think we can definitely do that on a weekly basis where I can every
Sure.
week I can drop you an email at the end of the
Sure.
week and update you on whatever's happened in the past.
Sure.
As long as, of course, and if you feel that that was not in line with the overall strategy that we had decided, then you're obviously free to, we can, discuss it, or you can, you have the full discretionary authority on the overall department as such. So that's not, that's something that I'm comfortable doing.
Sure, that's fine. It won't be a check-in in terms of I'm not checking on you. The term is just kind of like a weekly meeting, so it's like you check in on the progress of stuff and like an update.
So basically, you want to be kept up to date on the progress on a weekly basis, which is something.
And
that
we can
I'm
discuss
okay with.
issues and think about approaches as well. Okay. Well, I think we are there, and obviously this will slightly evolve as we get into it and see, like, okay, well, what are issues? There's going to be times where you'll want to speak to me every day because there's so many issues with a certain deal or something, and I might, and sometimes we'll be too busy and we won't catch up for a couple of weeks as well. I think having this framework is helpful, and moving forward, once we agree on the strategy and we get more of your team involved in Indonesia, and once you relocate there as well, I think we can improve this, and it's really built on the foundation of you trusting me to make the right decisions and to listen to not just you but the team, and for me to trust you with the operations and ensure that and trust that you're making the right decisions for the company.
All right, that's on this thing. And now coming to the salary aspect that we spoke about. So you said that 20% is not something that you have the discretion, that you have the authority on. Is that?
No. So for me, it's not about the 20% number. I'm not willing to entertain salary discussions right now because I feel like once you move to Jakarta in Indonesia and once we start executing on some of this, I think right now you obviously are being paid at kind of above market or at market in terms of what your responsibilities have been, and they have been to build the Indonesian business as well. That's not something that I feel like right now we should significantly increase. I'm willing to discuss with you in 6 months about, okay, well, now we're up and running. Now we've got a couple number of deals and we want you to take on a larger role as well. And we can talk about kind of salary increases then as well. But for me, talking about a salary increase right now isn't in line with what both you and I are trying to do with the organization.
So when you say 6 months, can you explain like where that rationale is coming from? Like 6 months.
Yep.
Is it because you're saying that's in line with the standard increment in salaries?
Yes. Yes. So it would be in line with standard, and also 6 months would allow us to establish ourselves as a team in terms of where we want to go, and the strategy will be transitioning into execution.
Okay. All right.
Sure. Okay. So I think we've agreed that we will facilitate you moving to Jakarta, and your salary is going to be exactly what it is in Singapore dollars, and then transfer to Indonesia. You will become responsible for the operations, and we'll put in some processes to ensure that we're kind of open and we understand where we are.
And also that I will be leading the on-ground executions as far as the